What's up, guys? Farzin Vasugian here. It is game day. Yes, the day has finally arrived. It's been 24 days, and hell no, I'm not counting that Week 18 game because nobody in Kansas City gave a damn about that game. It's been 24 days since we've last seen an authentic Kansas City Chiefs football game. It's been 24 long goddamn days, and we are finally here. Hell yeah, let's go. Chiefs, Texans, divisional round. The opener for the divisional round. Let's do this here. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Hope you're all having a great Saturday, a great game day. If you are on your way to Arrowhead, drive safe, be safe, have fun, cheer loud, make all kinds of noise. Let them know Arrowhead is the best stadium in the NFL, the loudest stadium in the world. That's a fact, by the way, not an opinion. All right, let's talk about this game. Chiefs and Texans. How are we feeling? Look, I feel good. I feel good. Earlier in the week, it kind of felt like the line wasn't really maybe a little too generous to Kansas City side. It was 8.5 to start off. It was 7.5 earlier in the week, very briefly, and then it went back to 8.5. So Kansas City, Vegas certainly feels good about Kansas City's chances in this game. The odds have stayed there. The Lions Commanders, the odds for that have come down a little bit for in favor of Detroit. So the Chiefs right now tied for the highest spread for the divisional round. I just don't think this one's going to be particularly close. I said my score prediction on the podcast on Thursday. I said 31-17 in that game. Earlier in the week, I was leaning towards 31-24. I thought it was going to be a 7-point game. But I just feel like the Joe Mixon injury, that has played a really big part in my prediction change there. Because even though Joe Mixon is going to play, and those are the reports coming out yesterday and even more so today, he's obviously going to be far from full strength. No one is 100% this late in the season, just no way. But the Texans, I mean, this is a team right now that's been decimated with injuries. And I kind of feel like I'm talking about Kansas City's regular season because they lost a couple of their wide receivers. Texans lost a couple of their wide receivers as well. And their running back is currently injured, and the Chiefs have certainly dealt with that as well. But the big difference is the timing of all of these things just haven't gone well. Stephon Diggs, excuse me, he got injured midway through the season. Tank Dell got injured a month ago, the last time these two teams played. And then Joe Mixon suffered that ankle injury in practice on Wednesday. And the amount of time between that injury and this game, not a lot of time there. They're saying he will play, and I believe that. I'm sure he'll suit up, all of that stuff, but how much will he be used? Is he going to be there for a guy that's used as a decoy? Is he somebody that's going to be able to contribute in a big manner? Those are the questions I have, and I think a lot of Houston Texans fans feel the same way. So yes, he is expected to play, but the better question now is how much can he contribute in this game? That's the number one question for the Texans, because Robert Woods did not practice. There has not been any certainty that he will play in this game, at least not yet. But there's a lot of pressure on CJ Stroud and Nico Collins to have a very strong connection in this game. And from the Texans side of things, the bad news is the Chiefs got Jalen Watson back. So, and the Chiefs are pretty good when it comes to their man coverage defense. And you have the opportunity to do some double teaming on Nico Collins and leaving certain guys one-on-one when you don't really need much there. I think, you know, when you go through a lot of these different, remember in Infinity War when Iron Man's asking Doctor Strange, hey, what happens? Do we ever win this battle? And he goes through his all these scenarios, 14 million scenarios, and there's only one scenario where the Avengers win that battle. And for plot purposes, that one scenario happened. But I'm trying to think like Doctor Strange, going through all these different scenarios. What do the Texans need in order to win this game? And I think this Texans team needs Patrick Mahomes to play like he did in that Christmas game against the Raiders. I know that's a game not a lot of Chiefs fans want to remember, but that's when Patrick Mahomes committed 2 turnovers in 7 seconds, and both those turnovers led to defensive touchdowns. The Chiefs are a far different football team since that game. The offense is much different. The pass blocking, at least with Joe Thuney shifting out to left tackle, it's far better. And Patrick Mahomes has a lot more reliable weapons this year than he did last year. So this is a Chiefs offense that I'm certain that won't allow anything like that to happen again, especially with the personnel they have this time around. There's a reason why Brett Veach made the moves that he made in the offseason and even during the season as the season's gone along, bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster and Samaje Perine, bringing him into the fold right after training camp cuts occurred. And then during the season, trading for DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason, drafting Xavier Worthy, signing Hollywood Brown. I know Hollywood Brown didn't play much this year, but those two games right before the playoffs it's going to play a big role because Mahomes and Hollywood, those two needed to get some sort of a connection going. And if this was going to be Hollywood's first game back with the Chiefs, I would have been concerned. And there was some thought that this would have been his first game back with the Chiefs, but he was able to get a couple of games with Patrick Mahomes. And I think that is important because they'll be able to get a feel for each other on the field. You know, when to expect the pass, when to expect that throw, when to expect this receiver to be here or wherever on certain plays. And that's going to really help Mahomes and Hollywood because now they're not in that stage where they're kind of in a testing phase trying to figure out, okay, where are you going to be at this time? By the time I sling the ball, are you going to be here for sure? They'll have a much better understanding of all of that now that they've had a couple of games and obviously spending all of the offseason together. So that is all going to come into play. There's a reason why Brett Veach went and got all those guys I mentioned in the offseason and during the season. And we're going to see that come into effect in this game. I think that's the most important part here. The Chiefs, they essentially have everyone back from injury except for Mecole Hardman and Rashee Rice. And listen, no disrespect to Mecole Hardman, solid returner. But on offense, we just haven't really seen him flourish the way we would have liked for him to. In fact, he's kind of regressed offensively speaking. I know he had the game winner and all of that last year, but overall body of work, we just haven't seen much of that from Mecole Hardman. I think at the end of the day, when you look at the Chiefs, okay, you don't have Rashee Rice back, but you were able to, in a way, let's just say swap him out for DeAndre Hopkins. So the receiving corp that we talked about all offseason long with Worthy, Rice, and Hollywood Brown, we're seeing that now. The only difference is instead of Rice, it's DeAndre Hopkins. So this is a Chiefs team right now, offensively speaking. They've got all of their weapons that they need. The defense, they're at full strength. They got Jalen Watson back. He was the only guy that they were really missing on the defensive side. And now that he's back, and we'll see how he does, probably not a lot of pressure on him because the Texans are just banged up. They're already without Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. Robert Woods may not play in this game. Joe Mixon is banged up. This is a Chiefs defense bringing Jalen Watson back. Not a lot of pressure on him, so he won't have to do as much. And maybe you can put him on a little bit of a snap count and hopefully doesn't re-aggravate any kind of anything with that ankle or that foot there. So I'm really excited. The Chiefs defense, they're at full strength. And that is not something you ever hear on January the 18th. You just don't hear that. Chris Jones is coming back. He missed the last couple of games. I would not have played that Week 18 game anyway. And then you look at the offensive side. I mean, this is as close to as full strength as you can get. Again, the only major omission is Rashee Rice. And you were able to get DeAndre Hopkins during the season to be able to alleviate that loss. So this is a Kansas City football team that despite all the injuries, they figured it out. And yeah, they've been battle tested. They came through in a lot of these close games. Some of their breaks went their way. I heard Draymond Green, he mentioned, three-peating is hard because you do need a lot of things to go your way. And Kansas City has that for sure. So the Chiefs, everyone wants to talk about how three-peats never happened before, but they have the number one seed. And that long break for those starters to not play in a game, that is going to come into effect also in this game here. People want to talk about rust and all these things. Okay, all right. I mean, maybe on the first drive, sure, but let's be honest here. They've been playing nonstop since week 6, I believe. Because week 6 was their bye. From that point on, week 7 on, this Chiefs team has been playing nonstop. They just came off a stretch where they played 3 games in 11 days. So I don't want to hear any conversation about rust or they're going to be lazy. They just grueled through a rough 3-game stretch against 3 very good defenses, all of which have elite pass rushers. Myles Garrett, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, part of that defense in the middle there. Like, it's not like they just played a bunch of pushover defenses. So this is a team, offensively speaking, specifically, I mean, they went through quite a grind in the month of December. And they were able to get the number 1 seed, win all those 3 games in 11 days, and be able to get week 18 off and the wild card round. So I'm very excited to see what the Chiefs are going to do in this game. Obviously, we touched on defense. We touched on offense. We do have to touch on special teams here. Matt Ariza, no problems from him. For me, I mean, he's played consistently well all year long. This is essentially his rookie season. And then the long snapper, Winchester, nothing, no issues with him. Butker's the concern here. He has taken a step back this year after a monster season last year. How much of it has to do with the knee surgery that he had mid-season, missing 4 to 5 weeks, and then coming back when Matthew Wright and Matt Schrader were filling in for him? I don't know. The missed PAT against the Steelers, the long one he's capable of making those 48-yarders, but I'm not too concerned about that one. But the one he had against the Broncos, that's the only major concern I have from that Broncos game, is what Butker missing that field goal right there. That's the only major concern I have with Butker, or from that game is with Butker. So as far as Butker overall, I don't have major concerns with him. I think the inconsistency is certainly a question, but we've seen situations where Butker, I'll use Super Bowl 57 as an example. Butker missed the field goal in that game in the first half. And then what did he do? He makes up for it by making the game-winning field goal. And I don't care if it was a chip shot field goal, man. The amount of pressure riding on your shoulders in the Super Bowl to make that field goal, to win it all. I mean, I don't know how these. I know people are going to say, "Oh, they're professionals." Yeah, they're also human beings. Just to be able to stay calm in those situations, that's huge. Same thing last year in the Super Bowl. Was not the game-winning field goal, but with the game tying. You miss that kick, you lose. There's no overtime at that point. You don't have an epic walk-off for McCole Hardman. So Butker has never missed any situation where he's needed to come in for a game-tying or a game-winning field goal. And I don't expect that to change anytime soon. All right, let's read some comments here. Good morning to all of you. For those of you just tuning in, appreciate you guys joining me. This is the pregame live chat. Yeah, way better personnel. And look, give credit to Brett Veach. He recognized what was wrong. He did the exact same thing after Super Bowl 55. Mahomes got his ass kicked because they had a JV offensive line out there, and he said, we can't allow that to happen ever again. There's a reason why he addressed all 5 positions at the offensive line. And you saw a different 5 to start off the 2021 season compared to the start of the 2022 season. Same exact thing with the wide receivers last year. There's a reason why you went through all those changes. There's a reason why right now you're not seeing Sky Moore. I know he went through his injury, but even then, I still don't think he would have seen much playing time with the Chiefs. I would almost guarantee he would have been placed on the practice squad if it wasn't for IR. Kadarius Toney, I mean, they just put him in the doghouse. They just did. Plain and simple. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he did come through in the postseason, and I gave him credit for that last year, but overall body of work, just wasn't coming through. And it's amazing because now he's catching everything that's thrown his way with the Saints. How does that happen? So this is a Chiefs team that has definitely improved its roster, and Brett Veach, big thanks to him, because if it was not for his abilities as a GM, the Chiefs would not be where they are right now. Chiefs have had a long break, yeah. Andy Reid coming off a bye. Not invincible. He's lost coming off a bye before, but more times than not, you bet on Andy Reid than not. Texans need tons of flags. John, I feel like you're always mentioning the right tackle. We'll see what Jawan Taylor does. I actually thought Jawan Taylor played fairly well in the playoffs last year. The one big knock on him was when he committed that illegal the block in the back that nullified a Rashee Rice touchdown against Miami. That would have been Rice's second of that game. And Rice had another one that was taken back in that Baltimore AFC Championship game too. So don't you ever get tired of constantly squawking the Taylor penalty? Oh, okay. You're responding to someone else. I thought you were talking about me for a second. But listen, in all fairness, though, like, it is a concern. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like, not that we want to look forward to the offseason right now. Hopefully, we don't have to talk about this in detail until later. But I will say right this moment that I think priority number one is figure out how the hell are you going to get out of Jawan Taylor's contract, because I think that's going to prevent you from possibly keeping Trey Smith, because Jawan Taylor is not worthy of that contract. No way. Now, is he going to agree to a restructure? I don't know. Can they come to some sort of an agreement there? Not sure. No one's going to trade for Jawan Taylor. No way. But we'll see what Brett Veach does. You know, I get people saying this because obviously the Texans their players are used to the warm weather in Houston, but these players have played in cold games before. I kind of feel like the weather is not as big of a factor as people make it out to be. Like, look at the 49ers and the Bills in that very cold game they had on Sunday Night Football earlier this year. The Bills just shellacked them in that game. It wasn't because of the weather. It's because the Bills are a way better football team than the 49ers. Same thing last year when the Dolphins came to visit the Chiefs for the wild card round. It wasn't because of the weather. The Dolphins had not played well against good teams with a winning record all year long. The only team they beat with a winning record last year was Dallas. So the Chiefs, I mean, they just simply did their thing, and obviously not a surprise considering they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. And I think that's going to play a big role in Kansas City's defense there. And hopefully the sack totals can continue to go the way they have these last few games, because Kansas City started to improve in that category as well. If the coverage is there, you know, you'll be able to get that sack. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and look, here's the thing. The Chiefs have a lot of players that I think we as fans, we're all excited to see. Pacheco, Hunt, Pirine. Those are just running backs I've named. As far as tight ends go, Kelsey and Gray. No one else really behind those guys. And then wide receivers, I mean, there's a long list of guys that we all want to see go out there and thrive. Hopkins, Hollywood, Worthy, even Juju, Watson, had a big game last time he played. Or not including the Broncos game, of course. I'm referring more to the Steelers game. I mean, Mahomes has a lot of options to work with. I think that's the beauty of not just what Brett Veach has done with this team, but the fact that this team's gotten healthy at the right time. I mean, I think when we saw all these injuries occur earlier in the year with Hollywood, Pacheco, Rice, I think the thought process was, well, maybe they can just do enough to get in as a wild card, and hopefully they can get healthy at the right time. Well, they got healthy, but they continue winning football games. They won the division. They got the number one seed. And let's be honest, nobody in week 4 or 5, despite all of those injuries, nobody really had a lot of confidence in Kansas City getting that number one seed. People kept saying, oh, they keep getting all these breaks. Eventually their luck's going to run out and they'll struggle and Buffalo's going to surpass them. Nope, never happened. I mean, yeah, Buffalo beat Kansas City, but what does that win really mean right this moment? Doesn't mean much. Even though Buffalo had the tiebreaker, didn't do enough to surpass the Chiefs in the standings. Even that win against the Rams, loss against the Rams, rather, that helped the Chiefs, and that helped them essentially rest the starters for the Week 18 game. But, I have no doubts that the Chiefs would have taken care of the Broncos. I mean, look, I know Colin Cowherd on his show was like, oh, Bo Nix, he completed his first 14 or 15 passes. And his co-host was like, those were backups. And Cowherd goes, oh, yeah, but they're professionals. Are we really going to hold second and third stringers to the same standard as first stringers? Like, come on. The Chiefs would have taken care of the Broncos. Did you see the Broncos last week offensively? Defensively, I love the Broncos defense. Hate to say it, but that defense, I can sit here and say nothing but good things about it. Offensively, I think they're moving in the right direction, but they sure as hell did not look like a good team outside of the first drive last week. Need a classic Pacheco smash mouth running game. I was looking back at some of the highlights of the postseason last year over the weekend, and I was watching Pacheco against the Bills. Dude, that he was impossible to stop. And think about the Bills in that game. They did not have a big game, meaning there was not a play bigger than 20 yards for the Bills in that football game. The Chiefs only had 6 plays where they lost yards. 4 of them were QB kneels. So I just wish they would have used Pacheco a little more, especially inside the 5 when Andy Reid was doing whatever the hell he was doing with McCole Hardman inside the 5. Made no sense because Hardman did have that fumble that went into the end zone for a touchback. I mean, if they just kept it to Pacheco, would have been up by 10 points. And then Tyler Bass doesn't have to miss with the game on the line, but it all panned out. And McCole Hardman made up for it the following, or a couple of weeks later in the Super Bowl. What was the big game? Kelsey, Brown, or Hopkins? I'm not going to go with, well, maybe Kelsey. I don't know. I know Kelsey just not putting up the big numbers like he used to, and he acknowledged that on Stephen A. Smith's show, but he has benefited from coming off a bye. He really has. And I think that's where Kelsey can be dangerous the most. Hollywood Brown, the reason you got him is because of his speed and what he's capable of doing. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And Hopkins, I mean, that guy's just a veteran and a future Hall of Famer, and still has some great play left in the tank there. So if you had to ask me right away, I want to say Kelsey, but if I really had to put money on it, I'm going Hollywood Brown. I'm going Hollywood Brown in this one here. And I would not be surprised if this was one of Patrick Mahomes' best games all year. What was his best game this year in terms of passing yards? I know he had 331 in a game. I want to say that was against Saints. Yeah, he had 331 against the Saints. That's the most. Okay, I got a question for you guys. Let's just use that number, 331 passing yards for Mahomes. If there was an over-under on that, and I know that's not what it is, but if there was an over-under on that, would you bet that the Chiefs, or Mahomes specifically, can surpass or at least get 300 yards? Let's just say 300 yards, because he's only had 3 300-yard games. He had 306 against the Raiders the second time the two teams played, had 320 against the Steelers the last time Mahomes played, and then had 331 in that Monday Night Football Week 5 game against the Saints. I would put money he's above 300 in this game. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, not really. I think he's just, a body there for that to complete the roster count for the Chiefs. Because I mean, let's be honest, and not any shots fired at Bozeman. It's just, is that someone who you really think the Chiefs are going to rely on in the playoffs? I think he may just get a few snaps in this game, and that might be it. So Chicago wants to trade Pittsburgh for Mike Tomlin. I've not seen that, but I mean, look, if Pittsburgh was gonna get rid of Mike Tomlin, wouldn't they have done it by now? I don't think they would wait this long, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, only one head coach has been hired, and I think everybody knew that Vrabel was on his way to New England. I was a little surprised they fired Gerard Mayo, but I mean, they saw Vrabel was available, so they went with him. I get it. I mean, I'm not in favor of firing a coach in just 1 year unless he was just absolutely like, who was that former Ohio State coach that coached the Jaguars and was fired before he could even complete his first season with them? Urban Meyer. I mean, that was a disaster. That had to happen. Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, like, I mean, you got to give him a chance. You can't expect a turnaround in one season, but that's the way those teams have just operated. Mixon is expected to play. Woods, we don't really know. He's kind of a toss-up. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Vrabel. I'll say this right now. If I had the ability, which, again, it's not unrealistic, but I'll say this. If I had the ability to swap Andy Reid out for anybody, and the only reason I do this is because of Andy Reid's age, I do it for Mike Vrabel. That's the only coach I would have other than Andy Reid right now. And again, it's really more so because of Reid's age. And I'm sure, there will be an up and coming coach at the time that the Chiefs will hire and feel really good about. But man, I think Vrabel's going to be a great coach. I think he's going to turn things around. I don't know. I'm not ready to say that the Patriots are going to have another successful run like they did with Brady and Belichick. Not ready to say that yet, but I do think Vrabel's going to move them in the right direction. I don't think it happens right away. It is not going to happen right away. That Patriots organization, they have a lot to work on, but I do think they're going to move in the right direction. Did Vrabel train under Andy Reid? I don't believe so, because last I remember, he played for the Chiefs, and then he, I think, became a defensive coach for Ohio State, quickly built his way up, and then he coached in Houston as a defensive assistant, and then the Titans hired him. So I don't think he's ever had a connection to Andy Reid, unless there's just something I'm forgetting or missing there. $300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Okay, Chris, I like it. If you told me that the last time these two teams played, I would have said three times sounds reasonable. But they only allowed 1 sack. And Joe Thuney, again, that guy's not playing like Mitchell Schwartz or Willie Roaf or any of the other past top-tier tackles the Chiefs have had. But damn it, man, he's playing close to it. I mean, for a guy who's getting away from being the best left guard in the NFL and shifting out to left tackle, I mean, you can't really say anything bad about what Thuney's doing right now. Being selfless, doing what it takes to help the football team. I was nervous about the switch because of his arm length, but boy, he's playing very well at that spot right now. The Chiefs needed that switch. And I know the Chiefs have had the last couple of seasons where they've gone back-to-back with bad offensive tackle play, but I don't want to see it a third time around. I just don't. Because I do think that it could be exploited and it can be used to keep the Chiefs away from being able to do it 3 years in a row. They are going to keep Thuney at left tackle. That is the word that came out yesterday. So we'll get that final confirmation during pregame warmups. That won't be for a few hours, but that is what we're going to see. We'll see the Chiefs with Joe Thuney at left tackle and Caliendo at left guard. And I know people are asking, well, what about the running game? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? What's the concern with the running game? Because the last time these two teams played, the Chiefs averaged 4.4 yards per carry. So, and again, they're splitting the snaps out there between Hunt and Pacheco. You see it. Hunt had 11 carries. Pacheco had 9. And just as a unit, the Chiefs had 4.4 yards per carry. Kareem Hunt averaged 5 yards per rush. I don't know, when people are asking, what about the running game? I don't know what that question means. So if someone wants to educate me on that, please do. Has the running game been phenomenal this year? No. I would say that before the Thuney switch and after the Thuney switch. I don't really see a big difference in the running game. Do you guys? The only thing is I'm noticing after that failed, the only issue I had with the running game in that Texans game is on 3rd and short and 4th and short, they ran with Pacheco. He got stuffed on both of those plays. And I think part of it is the way they lined up after giving the ball to Pacheco. The way they lined up, it was just a terrible design. You basically set him up to fail. I thought that was a terrible setup by Andy Reid. And by the way, I think part of it is you got to put Kareem Hunt in those short yardage situations. It's kind of, why did they bring Thomas Jones in 2010? Because they felt like he was better than Jamal Charles in those short yardage situations. And he certainly was. Same exact thing here. I want the Chiefs, if they're ever in a 2nd and short, 3rd and short, 4th and short, and they want to run the ball, give it to Kareem Hunt. And by the way, please have a much better lineup this time around. And I trust that they'll do that this time. So that was my only big issue with the Chiefs, offensively speaking, against the Texans when they last played each other. Because here's the thing to me, and I don't want to dismiss the running game. It's important. But what is this team's bread and butter? They're paying that quarterback named Patrick Mahomes a lot of money. They gave him the highest paid contract. I know he's restructured and all that stuff over the years, but he's still making a shit ton of money there. There's a reason why they went out there and got all those receivers. And the question and the concern is the running game. I mean, come on, the running game will be fine. They just had 4.4 yards per carry. They'll be okay. They'll be just fine in this one. Let's relax a bit. Concerned on the left side of the line isn't as strong in the running game. Yeah, but it's been that way all year long. Like Kareem Hunt, don't get me wrong, he's given the Chiefs offense a nice little boost there, especially with all those injuries, but it's not like Kareem Hunt was putting up massive numbers, and Pacheco's numbers have gone down too in terms of his averages. So it's really been the same to me. Does anyone have like a stat of the running game? Like how many yards are they averaging per carry before the switch and after the Tooney switch? I'd love to see that number if anyone has it. Let me just see as a team. Hold on, let me see if I can look this up as we go along here. Because this is what we do. Let's see. Okay. Hunt. His yard per carry average. First game was with the Chargers, almost 5 yards a carry, 3.7, 3.5, 2.8, 3.9, 2.5 against Denver, the blocked field goal game, 4.2, 4.2, 2.1 against the Raiders, and that was with Tooney at left guard for 90%, 98% of the game. Average 3.2 against the Chargers. That was when DJ Humphries played at left tackle. Against Cleveland, he was 3.4. Against Houston, he was 5.0. 2.2 against Pittsburgh, which wasn't really concerned because the passing game was working. And that was one of the second best game for Mahomes in terms of passing yards. Second or third, I can't remember which. Okay, so, and by the way, it was second best. I mean, Kareem Hunt's numbers have been merely the same all year long. Yeah, he had a couple of 100-yard games earlier in the season, but that's because they were giving him the ball at least 21 times a game. There were 4 games in a row where Kareem Hunt ran at least 21 times a game. And they haven't given him the ball as much since then because they don't want to turn him into a workhorse. I just don't see it. I just don't know if there's enough evidence to say that the running game has changed drastically. Yeah, P. Ryan has been more efficient in the passing game for Kansas City. A lot of people said this guy is very similar in terms of his skill set to Jerick McKinnon. The only major difference is that he's about 15, 20 pounds bigger than McKinnon. Now, is that someone you can rely on for short yardage situations? Hopefully it doesn't have to come down to that because maybe that means Kareem Hunt's hurt, but he's certainly an option. And I think that's someone who you use more in the passing game than the rushing game. Yeah, that's what I think. Like the sack total going down, and I know Tooney allowed a lot of pressures in that first game because that was his first game, and he's going up against Myles freaking Garrett. I thought Juwan Taylor played very well against TJ Watt. I think there was only one play there where he might have gotten away with something, which I know people love to make a big deal about. But I feel like the offensive line, in terms of pass protection, played by only one sack allowed in the last 3 games Mahomes has played. I think that has more importance than the rushing game. And again, I'm not saying we're not running the ball, but what I'm saying is I think that is the most important game right now. NFL Network is showing the 2019 AFC divisional game. Oh, what a game that was. I'm not going to lie to you all. I'm watching that game, and I'm just thinking to myself, it's not meant to be. It's just not meant to be. And then the Chiefs erased that in 9 minutes. What a game that was. That was insanity. Kelty was just partying out there. Like, as soon as the Chiefs got the lead, you just knew the Texans were done. They were done. And then Eric Fisher did his thing with the beer. and got fined for it. And who was it? Bud Light or Miller Lite? They were like, yeah, we'll pay the fine. Yeah, I remember Orlando Brown's first game. It was against Myles Garrett, and people said, okay, it's his first. Because I remember he allowed, I think, 5 pressures in that game, Orlando Brown, and that was the most he had given up. So that was not a really good start to his Chiefs debut. Unfortunately, that didn't get much better for Orlando Brown. But we'll see what the Chiefs do. Because right now, I mean, listen, I was excited for DJ Humphries. I bought into the hype. But unfortunately, it just hasn't really been there. I am not going to the game. No, you could not pay me any money, realistically speaking, to go sit in that cold. I can't do the cold, man. I can't do it. That's why the snowstorm we had recently, that was hell for me. A cold type of hell. He's Steve Austin, those beers, hell yeah. No pun intended. Keep Humphries or let him go. Look, the Chiefs have gotten the left tackle spot wrong for quite some time since they let Eric Fisher go. This guy might be your best option if he has a full off season of work. So I say keep him, and I don't think he's a guy who can really be in position to demand a lot of money. So I hope they can figure out a way to keep him. Yeah, I saw that stat was put out there. That is actually incorrect. That was like NFL memes, and I know I shared that, but I was just being facetious about that stat. I said that the Chiefs should go through pregame warm-ups or pregame introductions slowly, intentionally. So yeah, you better hope they kick it off at 3:29, because if it's 3:31, and if you believe that kind of stat, you're screwed. I work outside the airport, so it's going to be nothing for me. Well, there you go, Brett. There you go. So some people live for the cold. Listen, I like Ryan Day. I like Ohio State and what they've done these past a couple of years. Give me Ohio State. Wasn't it nice, by the way? Those last 2 playoff games were close and came down to the wire there. That was a nice little change there for once with the college football playoffs. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate all of you joining me this morning. Again, if you're going to the game, be safe, cheer loud, have fun. For those of you that are going to be watching from home, just a nice little reminder. I mean, if you're at the game, you can watch too, but I suppose it might not be as easy to listen to. But if you're going to be at home, come back at halftime. We will do the halftime live stream as soon as that post-game interview is over with. We're starting this live stream up. And yes, layer up, Aaron. Good call. I appreciate it. Come on over and watch the halftime live stream. It'll be fairly short because it's halftime after all. After the game, we are doing the Chiefs Zone podcast live. We'll take your video calls. I'll have the links for you. We'll post them in the comments as the live stream goes on. And all you guys have to do is click on the link, turn on your audio, your video, put in your name, and we can treat it like a call-in show almost. So make sure you guys come back after the game and join me for the Chiefs Zone podcast. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all once again for joining me. I'm out. I'll talk to you all after the game. And rock chalk, that's my answer for you.